Why the hustle culture is killing your creativity. Working harder, but feeling like you're pushing a rock uphill? Let's discuss. Eva, can you define side hustle in 70 words or less?
Absolutely. A side hustle is basically a small or part-time venture you run alongside your main job to earn extra income. It's often something you're passionate about or a skill you want to monetize, and it can range from freelancing and online gigs to selling products or offering service in your spare time.
Thank you, Eva. A side hustle could be something that you manage during your breaks or lunch at your primary job, or it could be something that you do completely separately. This isn't to be confused with a second job. That's a completely separate stream of income. I think the difference between the two really comes down to what your future intent is. So a lot of people use side hustle as a escape pod for their main job that they usually dislike. So the goal for a lot of people is to start a side hustle, grow it to a point where they can leave their job full time and go to the side hustle. Very few people are able to do that. I know only a handful of people personally that have done that successfully. I've interviewed a lot of people that have done it on the podcast, but it just statistically speaking, it's very rare. But there are some hacks that you can do to be able to pull that off. I think a lot of it has to do with people are terrible multitaskers and they're terrible at task switching. So let's get some information here about task switching to give you an idea just how bad it is. Eva, can you give me a 150 word explanation on task switching and how it harms productivity?
Absolutely. Here you go. Task switching is what happens when you shift from one task to another, and it's a well-known productivity killer. Each time you switch tasks, your brain has to drop the context of what you were doing before and load up a new set of mental processes for the new activity. This mental gear shifting isn't instant. In fact, it can take about 20 to 25 minutes to fully regain the same level of focus you had before the switch. This loss of focus is partly due to what's known as attention residue, where your mind is still somewhat preoccupied with the previous task. As a result, your productivity drops, you become more prone to errors, and overall efficiency takes a hit. Repeated task switching throughout the day can add up, making it harder to achieve deep, meaningful work.
I've experienced that myself. So that's some of the reason why we dislike our jobs, our day jobs, is we really get into the groove on a particular activity, then we get tapped on the shoulder or we get texted or messaged to start doing something else. And it takes, like she said, 20 to 30 minutes sometimes to go from one task to another. And then there's this residue. Something else that creates residue is unfinished tasks. So if you're jumping from thing to thing, never completing any one task, you lose a ton of efficiency. So if you're trying to run your side hustle during your bathroom breaks at your primary job, you're going to do a terrible job at it. Terrible, because that's just the brain. If you're working a business, a side business, completely separate from your day job. So in other words, you have a completely different location, or maybe you go home and you go online and you check your eBay or Spotify or Shopify or however you're trying to get revenue for your side business. If you are task switching at home as well, let's say if you don't have dedicated time set up to do those activities, you're losing a tremendous amount of productivity. You might have 2 hours dedicated to go home and do a particular task, but I guarantee you, you don't typically have it scheduled like you have your shift scheduled at work. So your side hustle needs to be much more regimented and you need to be more careful about the value of your time. And so sometimes you just get in this rage of a flurry of different activities and nothing's really getting done and you're getting really demotivated and tired and burnt out. You have to regiment that. Look, I know that getting organized is not something that people get excited about, but you have to do it. I'm going to insert a video where I talk over how I set things up. So I'm going to play it to myself first and then add this to the video later. So here we go. All right. So obviously I have an iPhone. I'm going into my calendar. I'm creating what I want to do. So I typically write 2 hours a day. I put Z because the letter Z kept a bunch of other things from popping up. So I'm going to set a time to write every day, 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And this is actually an alert that I do have. And I put it to go off about 5 minutes before. So my point there is if it's not written down, it's probably not going to happen. And that's one of the most important things that you can do. And you should do that. Either stop the video right now, it's on YouTube, hit pause, go into your phone, find a time when you're usually available, and specify, I don't care if it's 15 minutes a day. If you only have 15 minutes a day, put it on the calendar. You've got to get at that level of organization or nothing is going to happen with your side business. I prefer to do 2 hours in the morning. It's a great time. I usually don't get bothered a whole lot in the morning. People are generally a little bit more creative in the morning. There are some that are more creative in the evening. Me, I do my best work in the morning without distractions. And also, too, as far as distractions, you can silence notifications on your phone. You can put it on do not disturb. When I'm writing, when I'm doing the thing that makes me money, my phone is nowhere near me. It's not even in the same room. I don't have the phone in the room when I'm doing deep work. In the book Scintilla, I talk about some productivity tools like using Pomodoros, which is 45 minutes of intense focus on whatever you're trying to do. And then 15 minutes, you could be walking outside, you could be taking a break, you could relax, whatever you need to do to decompress. And if you're going to do a second hour, then you go do another 45 minutes. But that 45 minutes, here's the thing. You can't be picking up your phone. You can't check Instagram, TikTok, doom scrolling. No, it's 45 minutes of very deep work. And I've talked to people that said, I've been at my desk all day. Look, let's be honest. If we did a play by play of what you were actually doing during those 2 hours, you weren't focused on just specifically that task. I was joking with somebody the other day. They said that they spent about 2 hours looking, I think, on Pinterest for ideas for their thumbnail for their YouTube video. Just a horrible waste of time. I've probably done the same thing. We all have. But you desperately want to leave your job, the things that got you here won't get you there to where you want to go, which is the point of what I'm trying to say. This whole work smarter and work harder thing, I don't know about that. I don't like these phrases that people just say and there's nothing to it. When people say work smarter or work harder, a better way to think of that is don't work without metrics. So metrics might be for a writer, for instance, you could say you're going to write 2 hours a day, or you're going to say, I'm going to stay in the chair until I produce X number of words or X number of pages. If you're setting up an Etsy store, for instance, and you want to drive people to your Etsy store and you've decided LinkedIn is the place where you're going to do your organic marketing, you have to set aside your time. Let's say you choose 2 hours of time each day for Etsy to reach out on LinkedIn. Those 2 hours, you need to be on LinkedIn doing whatever that activity is. In with that, one more layer there. And I'll tell you what I'm after and what I'm trying to do as well. But in the book Scintilla, which came out last year, one of the things, and I don't know if it was ever said this way before, I certainly didn't invent this idea. I think I just said it in an unusual way. I said the consumption has to serve the function. And it's an intellectual version of you are what you eat. If you eat junk food, you're not going to be very healthy and you won't look healthy. If you have a goal as far as your business is concerned, all of your activities, all of your consumption should serve the fundamental function of whatever you're trying to do. If you're a photographer, you want to book photography sessions. If you're a musician, you want to sell records or you want to sell concert tickets. If you do handmade work on Etsy, you want to sell more whatever. It doesn't matter what else you do in your business. If you don't sell more of whatever you provide, whatever product or services it is, you're not going to be able to leave your primary job. Because why are you at your primary job? One or two reasons, right? You're either there for money or because of the insurance benefits. I don't know of really any other reason why somebody goes to work other than to get money or because they need the insurance. Usually the partner that has the better insurance is the one that stays working. And I've seen that too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that as well. Other options you may have. I know cases where a spouse has taken on a second job to make up for the money that will be lost from their partners walking away from their job and doing it full time. So there's always that. It's not for everybody. I realize some people have responsibilities where they just absolutely have to stay at their job. But if it's possible to leave your job and dedicate yourself, you can move so much faster. Think about a task like learning a language, which is intellectually, it's a very intense thing to do. What's the best way to learn a language? I don't know too many people who have casually learned another language. A few people have. With the apps now, some of it's possible. But the best way, you and I already know, immersion. Immersion is the best way to learn a language. You've got to surround yourself with it. Before the internet, what we would do is we would write cue cards, put them up on the wall of the, let's say, English and Spanish version of different words. You create an environment, a multilingual environment that's conducive to learning. Or if you have the money, which few do, but if you have the money, you go to a country that speaks that language and you immerse yourself physically and in every other way in that culture. Those people learn languages faster than anybody. If you want to learn Japanese, no better place than Japan, right? So think about your business in that same way. If you want your business to move very quickly, if you immerse yourself in it, you can make it happen. If what you have to offer has any demand in the market, and that's not my job to know. My book might help you with that, but that part you're going to have to figure out on your own as far as if there's a demand for what you offer. If you have your niche and you already know there's a demand, then you can double down and you can take your time. And if you have the ability to leave your primary job and not starve to death, you should certainly do it because it might take you years and years of part time side hustling where it might only take you 6 months if you fully dedicate your time. And like I said, if you're not working at all, you can dedicate 8, 9, 10 hours a day to your business, which is pretty intense. That's the tough thing about entrepreneurship is no one is telling you got to get up at a certain time. And so self-starters are the only ones that usually do very well with business. You have to stay motivated. You have to stay engaged and involved. And it's tough. Nobody's going to know if you didn't sit down and write for those 2 hours. But at the end of the year, everybody's going to know, right? Because the book's not going to come out or the song's not going to come out or whatever you said you were saying you were going to do by X, Y, and Z. So everything has to be written down. You have to know what is the fundamental function of your business, and then the consumption must serve the function. So you have to, everything you do, if you say to yourself, like recently I upgraded my video camera and I had to make sure that there was a connection between the purchase of that camera and because my goal is two things. I want people's emails addresses and I want to sell books. Those are I have other things that I want to do. I want to help other writers. I have this long list of great things that I like to do that I'm enjoying doing. But the primary thing that I have to do in my business to be financially successful, I have to sell books and I have to get people's email addresses. That way, if somebody buys a book, that's great. And if I don't know who they are, I can't put my next book in front of them. So if I have a way to get their email address, I can offer them the next book and the next book and the next book. And then later on, I'm going to sponsor other authors and bring their work under my publishing company. And then I'll be promoting other people's books, which I'll probably enjoy a lot more. It's always easier to promote somebody else's stuff than your own. But so that's the end game for me. So I'm telling you my evil plan. I'm just selling books and getting email addresses. So when I make a purchase, when I spend activity, when I'm on LinkedIn and all of that other stuff, that activity and that time that I put in has to serve the fundamental goal of getting someone's email address or selling a book. Now, I still have great relationships and I'll shoot the breeze with people, and I'm not all business 100% of the time. If anybody's seen my channel, I like to laugh, I goof around. But ultimately, when I'm making big decisions of where to put my time and where to put my money, it has to serve the fundamental goal of whatever I'm trying to do. If you're able to immerse yourself and do that job full time, move it from a side hustle to a primary, then give it a shot. And I also wanted to share that sometimes if you can do it ethically, your employer may even be able to help your goals. So when years ago, when I was the marketing director for a career school, I was doing a lot of networking for that company, and they wanted me to do that. They encouraged me to go out. I became an ambassador for the Greater Chamber of Commerce, embajador for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and was doing ribbon cuttings and all kinds of fun stuff. During the day, if I was going to a networking event during the day, I was being paid my regular hourly wage for doing that. At night, I would go to some of those same organizations' events. I wasn't paid for those. And that allowed me to then ethically introduce into the conversation that I also at the time had an art gallery. And people hear that, and, oh, wow. And a decent paying full-time job. And I had this really amazing business that I was running as an art gallery owner and a curator. And that sounds really cool. But the part of the story a lot of entrepreneurs won't tell you is how I got into that, how I was able to pull all of that off is I had taken a dishwashing job. Now at that point, I was already a veteran. I had served 8 years and I was a college graduate. And I took a job as a dishwasher in an Italian restaurant. I talk about that in the next book that'll be out early next year. And I couch surfed. So let's get Eva's definition on that. Eva, give me a 70-word explanation of what couch surfing is.
Sure. Couchsurfing is essentially a way to find free accommodation by staying as a guest on someone's couch or spare room. It's a global community of travelers and hosts who connect through platforms like couchsurfing.com. The idea is to share culture, meet new people, and have authentic experiences without paying for a hotel.
Yeah, the first half of what she said. Basically, you're crashing on a friend's couch. So, and I was still paying them. I've never lived anywhere for free. I always want to make sure they're compensated, that they don't, because anytime you have another person at the house, the bills are going to go up. The electricity, it's inevitable. So I want to make sure that it's net zero, at least for them. But I couch surfed for months and I was washing dishes. I'd moved back to San Antonio, took this extremely low paying job, worked as many hours as I could. And thank goodness they actually promoted me from dishwasher to cook. And that started a whole other journey because they were fantastic. The restaurant was fantastic. The people were the experience. It's one of my favorite jobs in my whole life looking back. And it was a hot, sweaty, dirty job, but it was a great company, great restaurant. But anyway, well, I bided my time. I just worked as much as I could, slept on my buddy's couch, squirreled away as much money as humanly possible. And I kept going to interviews and I kept putting resumes out there. And that's when I got this job as a marketing director for a career school, which now this is much better money. And after I did that for a few months and got even more money in the bank, I wasn't couch surfing at that point. I had my own apartment, but I was squirreling away more money. And then I started the gallery. But believe it or not, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think I only had about $1,500 in my checking account when I started that gallery. But the timing was right and there were a lot of things aligning. So I got a lease on an art gallery space with essentially a deposit and the promise of a few artists. Now, there's a whole other story about how that came together, and I'll tell that elsewhere. But just know I went from a kind of a really bad circumstance to a really good circumstance in a short period of time. It's just I was diligent about the work and I saved a lot of money and I stayed extremely focused as the gallery and the job I was working as the marketing director. I was allowed to network for both the academy that I worked for as well as the gallery. And I did that in an ethical way that I wasn't being paid on company time to promote my personal business. I did cultivate a lot of relationships along the way. And if I met somebody at a networking event that I later met on my own time, that's when I would introduce that I had a gallery. My gallery was very event oriented. So I was at an event meeting people. So naturally it was very easy for me to invite people over to the events I was having. And it was amazing. The gallery really took off quick because of that. But if I didn't have an employer that was understanding and allowing me to do that, to do those things, to wear both of those hats, I couldn't have pulled it off. So there's the version where you just have to work your day job and then you're going at night or whenever, nights and weekends, you're going to build your side business. Second alternative, just quit everything if you can do it for very little money, or just work a part-time job and then dedicate more of yourself to your primary venture, or do a blended approach. If there's some way that inside the relationship with your employer, you can also start to enhance your business. There's even some people I know that go specifically to an employer. They'll take a job because it's the type of skill that they want to take. As a matter of fact, on my podcast, which is part of the channel that you're watching now, my second guest did that. He was working for a creative agency. And after a while, after he got his skill level up and he had a better understanding of how they got their clients, he left and started his own agency. So that was another thing where he saved up a lot of money. He did it on a wing and a prayer, like I did with the gallery. $1,500 is not very much to save a business, to start a business, but that's what I did. All right, so let's do a quick recap. Whatever your business is, you have to have an idea of what the exact function is, whatever you're selling, and make sure all of your activities are geared towards making that activity happen, which is usually selling whatever it is. Second, the goals have to be written down. You have to have that time that you dedicate yourself to your business. You have to have it on your calendar like I do. I need it. As organized as I'm a fairly organized person, I still need those phone reminders. I still have to put things on the schedule. If you don't write things down, they're not going to happen. The other thing that you need to do, in addition to everything that I just said, is you need to have a weekly strategy session with yourself. Or if you have a mastermind group or other business friends, wow, that's even better. If you can get on Zoom, get on camera, meet face to face, that's always great when you can get a second pair of ears and eyes into the situation. But either way, have a meeting with yourself once a week to plan on what you're going to do the following week. The thing to bear in mind there is if you don't have that weekly strategy session, what's going to happen? Let's say, for instance, for me, I have the 2 hours of writing a day. Those 2 hours have to have a point to them. What am I writing about? What is the task? What is the overall goal? The overall goal is to get emails and to write books. But the reason why you have to have that weekly strategy session is based on what you learned the week before, the month before. Sometimes your plans have to change. When I started all this, I started a mastermind group first. Then I started this podcast. Then I started writing the book. And all of those projects are interrelated with each other. And so just stay on task, stay on task. A real productivity vampire is starting the day with no plan at all. Even if you have it scheduled that you're going to do X, Y, and Z for the next hour, next 2 hours, if you go into that day without a plan, that's going to be 2 hours wasted, or at least at the very least partially wasted. So that's why you need the weekly meeting with yourself. Now you can put into your phone each day what it is that you need to do. I prefer to have written lists on my desks. So my favorite thing to do is at night before I go to bed, I write my priority list for the next day because there are some tasks that I get to today and some tasks that I don't get to. And I check those off. And then I rewrite the new priority list for the next day. So when I come to my desk at 8 a.m. to start writing from 8 to 2, I may have other things that I need to do after I do the writing. And I have that list. I have a plan. If you don't have that written down, you're going to waste a lot of time. So you probably still could build your side business while working a full-time job, maybe even full-time plus overtime, if you're putting in extremely high quality, organized, scheduled time. You won't, it's hard for me to explain to you how much better your time is going to be spent inside that framework with schedules and goals and everything written down. You've got to try it. It's hard. It sucks. I don't like it, but I really don't like the time I waste when I don't do it there. And there are a few days where I forget or I don't do it or I'm not motivated, and it leads to just terrible unproductivity. So I don't encourage it. Eva, give me some ideas about productivity as far as setting of goals and daily scheduling of activities that'll help me grow my side business into a full-time business. 100 words or less.
Absolutely. A good approach is to set one or two top priorities each day that directly move your side business forward. Block off dedicated time slots in your schedule for these tasks and treat them like non-negotiable meetings. Use a simple planner or digital tool to map out your day the night before. This keeps you focused and ensures steady progress without feeling overwhelmed.
That's pretty good. I agree. All right, Eva, I'm wrapping up this video. Do you have any last words about productivity?
Absolutely. Just a quick final thought. Productivity is really about consistency and sustainability. Even small, steady steps each day can lead to big progress over time. So keep your goals clear, protect those focus blocks of time, and remember that building a full-time business is a marathon, not a sprint. You've got this.
She's so good, she's going to take my job. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. Subscribe. You know what to do. Let's support each other. Put in the links what you're doing. I want to support what you're doing. I want to subscribe to what you're doing. I want to follow what you're doing. Please do the same. Reach out to me. I'm getting pretty active on LinkedIn. You can find me easily. I will put the LinkedIn link in the description so that you can find me. I do have a group for writers. It's a little bit bigger on Facebook than it is on LinkedIn. But if you're interested in writing, we particularly appeal to nonfiction business writers. But we'll help anybody if you're doing fiction or fantasy. 80% of the things we do will apply. Everything's free. I don't have anything to sell. Like I told you before, the only thing I do is I sell my books and I get email addresses. That's it. As far as helping other writers, there's nothing inside of that we do that's monetized. And we have several published writers in the group. All of us are self-published except for one member of the group was actually traditionally published. They got picked up, got paid the advance, the whole thing. There's a lot of knowledge in that group. So if you're a writer, and there's a lot of lurkers in that group that aren't writers, they don't even want to be writers, but they just like the page. So they're signed up to it. And again, I have that on Facebook and LinkedIn. Since I've broken my arm, I'm not as active in that group because it is a two-handed activity. For those watching the video, you notice the last few videos, my left arm has not moved at all. It's because it hurts really bad when I do. So don't be discouraged if you don't see a lot of activity this past week in those writers groups. It'll come back roaring soon. So thank you so much. And please reach out if you have any questions, any suggestions. Thank you.